Conversations with Bob and Sherry is where the extrovert artist meets the introvert engineer. It's where analysis intersects experience. Join us as we explore news and culture to better understand what's true and important. The SPLC issued a hunting license against Moms for Liberty. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So the SPLC, far left group, categorized them as anti-government. You know, they didn't call them white supremacists, but they kind of implied they align with that. Then this week, Moms for Liberty chapter leader launched their newsletter online, and they attached to it a Hitler quote. And the Hitler quote is, "He alone who owns the youth gains the future." Now, the SPLC did an in-depth look at Moms for Liberty, so they know what they stand for, what they're about. They don't necessarily characterize it fairly, but they know. So this Hitler quote went on Twitter, people saying, look, they love Hitler, they're promoting Hitler, when anyone that does about 30 seconds of due diligence knows that that quote was not an endorsement.
Right.
That quote was a criticism of their opposition.
Right.
They're saying this is what we are against. We are against government indoctrinating our children because that's what Hitler was doing. That's what that quote meant.
Right.
And anyone that spent a little bit of time looking at what Moms for Liberty is about, what their claims are, would know that.
Right.
But, so you have the local newspaper, an Indy Star, small local newspaper. They see this and they run a story on it. They ran the story after the Moms for Liberty issued the apology and said, hey, we're sorry we posted a Hitler quote. We shouldn't have done that. But the story didn't explain that Moms for Liberty was using that as a criticism of what they're against, not what they're for. It didn't say that whatsoever. So you're working for this small newspaper. SPLC issued this report. It's national. It's a hunting license. So you know you can get attention for your newspaper by getting out there with this story first. Because if you get it out there, then the larger newspapers are going to reprint it. They're going to cite it. They're going to copy it.
Sure.
So you make money. You get exposure. But you have to assess the risk of something like this.
Right.
But again, because of the way the left works and because of this SPLC letter, they knew the risk was low. They didn't have to give Moms for Liberty the benefit of the doubt. They didn't have to explain their side. How many of the mainstream newspapers that talk about the documents thing doesn't say, but Joe's is different because? That's what they always do. Biden's is different because.
Right.
Well, if they were fair and they did fair journalism, they would have explained it was clearly not an endorsement, but they didn't do that. So then NBC picks it up and all the major large newspapers, and they all run with this story. And again, there's no risk because when NBC picks it up, they say, well, we're just citing this other newspaper, and they quote it and they reprint it. So you have this movement, and none of these journalistic, multi-million, billion-dollar voices are correcting the record. Not one of them are saying, but the people on Twitter are taking it the wrong way. If the situation had been reversed and right-wingers were doing that about a left-wing group, you know they would have done that.
Right.
So they just let Moms for Liberty hang out there in the wind and let them take all the heat, and nobody steps up and says, let's just be fair about this. We know that they're against government indoctrination, so this was not an endorsement of Hitler.
No,
they just let it lay out there and let people get the wrong impression.
Yeah,
and these are the same people, and this is what I said before. People on the left will look at anything we say or do, and if there's any slight negative consequence as the result of our words or actions, we are directly responsible, and we need to stop saying what we're saying, and we need to stop doing what we're doing. Here they are. They did this to Moms for Liberty. They misled people. It's totally unjustified. It's totally misleading, but they're not responsible.
Right.
They don't hold themselves responsible. They don't care. It's Moms for Liberty's fault.
You know, it's like walking on eggshells all the time. And this is what happened in the Chinese Cultural Revolution. I mean, we are in a cultural revolution. People are getting canceled. Interestingly, though, Bill Maher has been on TV saying all kinds of stuff that's, you know, it's funny because he's a Democrat, but he's not being labeled as a white supremacist or a racist. But there's a lot of things he says now that is very much in tune with, I would say, conservative would say. Now, how long are these people gonna be allowed to be on air? I think it all depending on the 2024 election, and who's gonna take over the White House and the DOJ, and what kind of people they're gonna go after. So it's to me, coming from, and I'm sure to a lot of the people from countries that has had this experience where there's a culture war, people see the dangers in this. And because it took China about 50 years to come back from the Cultural Revolution, to come back from that. And then, and also, if you look at it, the Democrats losing the Latino vote, losing the Muslim vote, they're losing the Asian vote. More religious people and more people from other country are more and more leaving. As a matter of fact, there's 60% of the registered voters supposedly, and I didn't look into this, are registered independent voters because they don't identify with either side of the, I guess, politics, or they just don't want to belong to any party because you don't know when you're going to get canceled. So it is a very, very sad phenomena we're witnessing. When I saw that video, I just thought to myself, oh my God, that's one out of many examples what's out there. And parents are endorsing it. They're not taking drag their kids away from it, say we're going to go. But maybe those parents are afraid to be called homophobic. Not wanting their kids to see this naked, fat, white dude twerking. Now all of a sudden they'll be afraid, oh, we don't want to look homophobic, so we're going to have to stay here.
The Moms for Liberty thing to me is like a David and Goliath story. You have to understand your enemy. You have to understand what these people are trying to do and how they operate. Moms for Liberty is a true grassroots organization. They don't maintain tight control over the messaging and things of the local chapters. They, what I would call, empower them. So I think that the main Moms for Liberty, if there is one, they share information. They provide resources to help recruit and train candidates and things like that. But they don't tightly control them. They don't give them talking points. They don't necessarily say, you can't post a newsletter without it being reviewed by our legal team and our this and our that. So they're just true, grassroots. Someone who's a little more savvy in marketing and PR and understanding this political situation would have known you don't quote Hitler. Okay? If you're a left-wing group, you can quote Hitler. But if you're a right-wing group, you cannot quote Hitler. Don't even say anything about Hitler on your webpage.
Right.
But it happened because they're sort of empowering these local chapter moms. So they're just moms. It's like big activism, some big multi-billion-dollar activism is on the left, and Moms for Liberty is just a little grassroots organization, and, now they've got the attention. But apparently the left is afraid of them.
Right.
Okay? Why are they afraid of them? Are they afraid of them because they're getting a lot of support? Are they afraid of them because they realize that they're right, that they have valid points, that their message is going to resonate? So for some reason, this little Moms for Liberty is seen as a threat by these huge left wing. Now, when I talk about big activism, I think it's called the Human Rights Coalition, this yellow equal sign with the blue square. Mm-hmm. That group, if you go to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, they're cited for all the DEI stuff. Vivek Ramaswamy was CEO of a company, and in the aftermath of the George Floyd protests, they received letters from a marketing firm that was being paid by this group to basically get them on message with the DEI. So people think they're watching on TV are black people outraged, but there's this whole machine behind it, including the Democrat Party. I still say that those protests wouldn't have been half of what they were if Democrat had been in the White House. It's this large, coordinated effort to get corporate America behind this agenda, and they've largely succeeded. That's where regular Americans look at it and go, "Oh, everybody's gone woke." Well, it was this coordinated effort. The same with the school board. Our local school board. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the superintendent tell the story about this, organic, spontaneous alumni letter, and they came in and they challenged us and they did this, and it's not political. I was at the one town hall about the gowns where they said this was not political. It was absolutely political. That same letter was going out all over social media. It was multiple local school districts, people that I know were involved, saw the same letter. It was a form letter. They may have tweaked it a little bit, but this was a political operation. This was not a spontaneous grassroots effort to get the schools on all this DEI stuff. This was orchestrated by big activism. So this is what Moms for Liberty is going up against. I mean, they're David going up against Goliath.